Battle of Caporetto, also known as the 12th Battle of the Isonzo or the Battle of Kobarid, is the pinnacle battle of the Isonzo front, occurring from the 24th of October to the 19th of November in 1917. This resulted in the complete destruction of the Italian army and almost forced them into a surrender. So what happened in this battle, and how did the Italian army face such a humiliating defeat? Well, that is what I will be covering in today's video. Battle was in large part a result of the previous Isonzo offensives and battles that had been taking place over the months prior. During the spring of 1917, the Italian army under Luigi Caderna had launched several offensives with the goal of trying to break the Austrian defense lines. The previous battle, the 11th Battle of the Isonzo, had made it clear to all belligerents that if things continued as it was, Caderna would probably have his breakthrough, as both sides were beginning to get tired and the Austro-Hungarians could no longer really hold a solid front. To ensure this did not happen, the Austrians asked for assistance from their ally Germany. Germany answered this call, sending troops from the Eastern Front to the Isonzo. These reinforcements would come with more artillery and gas to batter the Italian front. So for the battle, Austro-Hungarian Army Group Bojvek would be commanded by Svetozar Bojvek and was prepared for an offensive, with reinforcements from a new 14th Army formed from 9 Austrian and 6 to 8 German divisions, which would be commanded by Otto von Below from Germany. On the Italian side, Caderna was happy with his successes in the 11th battle and believed that he was done fighting for this year, with him relaxing his army into defensive positions. It was this belief that would ultimately doom the Italians in this battle, as even when Italian reconnaissance understood that German reinforcements were arriving, Caderna was convinced that they would not try an offensive. Caderna was wrong, and when the German army started utilizing its large amounts of gas and artillery on the Italian army, the problems began to show themselves. The Germans had utilized a specific type of gas that the Italians had not yet seen on this front, causing massive casualties and chaos before the fighting had even begun. These casualties were compounded by the many defective masks that were prevalent throughout the Italian army, and Caderna's continuation of refusing to believe that this was an offensive from the Germans. However, the battle had only just begun. German artillery began to open fire, targeting the valley roads which the Italian reserves were advancing on in order to ensure that they weren't able to plug the holes in their line. Then, the German-Austrian infantry attacked, quickly penetrating the now almost undefended Italian fortifications in the valley and breaching the defensive line of the Italian Second Army. The attackers in the valley marched almost unopposed along the excellent road towards Italy, advancing some 25 kilometers or 16 miles on the first day. The Italian army beat back the attackers on either side of the sector where the central column attacked. However, von Bellow's successful center penetration threw the entire Italian army into disarray. The Italians attempted to stop this advance by repositioning their army. However, they were unable to do so as each reposition created new holes in their line, allowing the attackers to push even further. The Italian Second Army commander Luigi Capello was bedridden with fever. However, even he realized that his army was being defeated. He requested a retreat to the Tagliamento. However, Caderna denied his request, believing that the Italians could still hold. However, his belief would not last forever. As more and more Italians died and they were routed farther and farther back, Caderna finally faced the truth. And on the 30th of October 1917, Caderna ordered the majority of the Italian force to retreat to the other side of the Tagliamento. It took the Italians 4 full days to cross this river. During this, the German and Austro-Hungarian armies were hot on their heels, ambushing the defenders whenever they could. These ambushes decimated the Italian army, becoming known as the Battle of the Pozzolo. However, after crossing the river, after the Italians crossed the river, that the successes of the assault began to create problems for the Austrian-German offensive. Their supply lines were simply too long to be able to continue to supply them, and they had run out of food and supplies, destroying morale and forcing the offensive to grind to a halt. The end of the attackers' advance gave Caderna the chance he needed, so he retreated his army further, and by the 10th of November, he had established a position on the Piave River, as well as in the area near Montegrappa, which would become the new main front for the war moving forward. The losses of this battle were enormous for the Italian side. Over 13,000 men were killed, 30,000 were wounded, and 265 to 275,000 were taken prisoners. A large amount of prisoners was due in part to Caderna's horrible tactics, and many men having horrible morale due to it. The Italians lost a total of 3,152 artillery pieces, 3,000 machine guns, and 1,712 mortars. These massive losses were contrasted by the relatively small Austro-Hungarian losses of 20 to 70,000 casualties, with the cost of gaining lots of land. With these losses, it is really no surprise that some call it the greatest defeat in Italian military history, and others, by any standard, the 12th Isonzo and its aftermath represented an unprecedented catastrophe for Italian arms. This disaster eventually led to the creation of the 1919 Military Commission that would try and investigate and find a cause for the collapse of the army here. Regardless, in the short term, it forced the resignation of Luigi Caderna, who had become in the eyes of the Italian population not only responsible for this battle's failure, but also the massive loss of life in the Isonzo front in general. Caderna left without much protest from the army, who had grown to hate the man who had dismissed 217 generals, 255 colonels, and 355 battalion commanders, as well as been just a horrible person in giving good speeches and morale boosters. The defeat of the battle also caused the collapse of the government back in Rome, forcing a new prime minister to take over to finish the war. However, this was not the end of the war, and it would stand as a starting point for following attempts by Italy to undo these losses and return to the Isonzo. But that is a story for another time. For now, this is all I've got, so I'll see you all next time.